So the last proportion we're going to look at specifically is, we're going to put h over here and h over y. So this one involves the altitude. So look at h over y specifically. We have short leg, long leg, and then we have h again. So that is the long leg of this one. What other piece do we need? So we have short leg over long leg. So if h is the long leg of this small one, what is the short leg? X. So h squared would be x times y, or solving for h would be the square root of x times y. Now, if you're good with the proportions, you know, you can always set up the proportion and then solve. If you're not so great with those, but you learn the shortcuts, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, you'll notice A, B, and H are all the segments that help make up your right angle of your large. Okay, so there are groupings of 3. And if you always pick out your large right angle and start there, and we look at A, for instance, notice if you want A is grouped with X and C, right? So if I start from my right angle and go along the outside, I can set up this equation or that one with those 3. So if I have 2 out of 3 of those, I can find the third, right? Now notice B. What is B grouped with? B, Y, and C. So it's the 3 on the other outside. Those 3 will be grouped together. Okay? And you're always starting. You have whatever's closest to that right angle is by itself. That's making up your equation by itself. Okay? And then the other 3, H, X, and Y, are the 3 that make the T in the middle. Okay? So those 3, of course, starting with H, which makes your, or is part of your right angle, or in your right angle. Does that make sense? After we do a couple, hopefully it'll make more sense where you can see how it's being used. All right, so keep this handy. Now the reason I say pick out your large right angle is your triangle won't always be in that same orientation, and you always start where the large right angle is. This one happens to be exactly what we need. Now, what you should notice is going around one side or the other doesn't bring us from here to these 2. You should always plug in C. Whether you plug it in as a variable or you have a number, you should figure out or locate C. Right? So if I go around the outside here, I have 3 variables. That's not going to help, right? I need 2 numbers in order to do anything. I could call this a variable over here, but still I'd only have 1 number, so that won't help either. So the 3 that make the T, I've got 2 out of 3 of them, right? Yes? Okay, so you start at your right angle. That means 6 is by itself. So we would say 6 squared equals 2 times x. Should be writing this down. So I can go on to solve that and say 36 equals 2x. Divide out 2. and x is 18. Using the fact that I know that there's a geometric mean there. Now, if you're good at the proportions, you could say 2 is to 6 as 6 is to x, because I'm using the two small right triangles. I'd get the same thing. Okay, so kind of off to the side, short leg over long leg equals short leg over long leg. Notice you still get 2x equals 36. Okay, so if you're using the proportion, it does give you the same thing. Okay, but now that I know that x is 18, I'm going to fill in that information. Yep.
You always do short leg over long leg.
If that's what you have, depending on what you're looking for, you know, sometimes it might be short leg over hypotenuse, you know. But what I'm saying is if you get used to these three groupings, then it saves you from even having to set up a proportion. You just go with, start with the three that you have two of, and pretty soon you're going to be able to find what you're missing to complete the rest. Okay, so now this grouping that I have over here, it appears that I don't have enough because I have y and c that are unknown. But are they both really unknown now? I now know what these two are, so I can find c just by adding them, yes? So what is c? 20. Okay, so that was unknown. Now, the diagram initially didn't ask you for c. We filled it in because you might need it. So now we've got a grouping here, right? And starting with your right angle, it's always y equals or y squared equals. It depends on if you want to immediately do the square root or not. But we'll say y squared equals 18 times 20. Now, you're going to need the square root of y, so you might as well do that. Y equals the square root of 18 times 20. And this should look like what we were simplifying in Friday's homework, right? So 18 is 9 times 2, so that would be 3, 3, and 2. 20 is 4 times 5, so that would be 2, 2, and 5. Taking out your pairs, we end up with 6 square root of 10 for y. Okay, so there's our x and there's our y. Okay. So between the two, you either set up the proportions and solve that way, or you can use the shortcut. But your homework tonight is 9 through 24 and 34 through 36 on page 394.